All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're talking about what happens when racism at work blows up into a full-blown scandal. We're talking real consequences, people getting fired, companies writing massive checks. We're going to go way beyond theory and look at real stories. So let's do this. So, what is the real cost? It's so much more than just a bad vibe in the office. We're talking about careers getting absolutely torched, companies being forced to pay up big time, and people's lives getting completely turned upside down. That's the question we're really digging into today. And to really get to the bottom of it, we're going to work through 4 recent real-world scandals. Each one is a little different, and each one shows you the very real, very serious fallout that happens when things go wrong. Okay, let's dive into our first case. This one is all about that so-called subtle racism. The kind of stuff people try to pass off as just a joke. But believe me, the consequences here were anything but a joke. This is really the heart of the issue here. The case is about a public sector worker in Australia named Nikki Hornberg and one of her colleagues who was from Germany. And the whole thing started with something that seems small on the surface, a nasty little nickname. So yeah, this wasn't just some one-off comment that slipped out. Ms. Hornberg kept calling her German colleague Helga, which, by the way, was not her name. She'd even mock her by saying things like, "Nine, nine." It just kept happening, and eventually, it got so bad that a bunch of her other coworkers had to step in and file formal complaints. So why was this such a big deal? Because it was officially classified as misconduct. And you gotta understand, that's not just about being bad at your job. Misconduct means you've deliberately broken the rules, like the company's official code of conduct. And that distinction is what kicks off a whole formal disciplinary process. And here's the final word from the Queensland Industrial Relations Commission. They looked at the evidence and ruled that, yep, using the name Helga was absolutely a form of racial stereotyping, and it was done in a mocking way. The employee got an official reprimand, and the commission said that was the right call. It just goes to show you, even that subtle stuff can have incredibly serious consequences. Okay, let's shift gears to our second case, where the racism was, well, there was nothing subtle about it. This story from the US is a perfect storm of what happens when overt racism crashes headfirst into the power of social media. So picture this, a high school classroom in Georgia. A teacher, during what she called a classroom word game, writes the N-word on the whiteboard for all her students to see. And apparently, she was smiling while she did it. Well, as you can imagine, that didn't stay in the classroom for long. A student's mom posted a video of it on Facebook, and things just exploded. The outcry online was immediate and huge. An online petition started getting thousands of signatures, and the pressure was on. The school district had to respond, and they responded fast. The teacher was fired, and the criticism was absolutely brutal. Activists and parents called it a clear violation of civil rights. They pointed out that she used a historically violent and dehumanizing slur, and she did it from a position of authority as a teacher. There was just no defending it. Now, for our third case, we're going to flip the perspective a little bit. What happens when a big company knows that racial abuse is happening and they do absolutely nothing? Well, this story shows you the massive, massive price a company can pay for just looking the other way. Okay, the timeline of inaction here at United Airlines is just staggering. For months, a Mongolian-American employee had to put up with being called Chinaman. Then things got way worse. A manager used a slur and actually physically threatened him. So the employee quits, and here's nothing. Crickets. An investigation doesn't even start for over a month. And here's the kicker. While that investigation was supposedly happening, the manager who did all this got a pay raise. I mean, you can't make this up. And if you want to know what kind of attitude this manager had, just listen to this. Right after he threatened the employee, he slapped him on the back and said, "Lucky for you, I'm a good guy." That combination of a threat and then just dismissing it, it's honestly chilling. In the end, that manager's little good guy act cost United Airlines a ton of money. The U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission sued on the employee's behalf, and it ended in a settlement of $99,000 plus 75,000 flight miles. That is a very, very high price to pay for ignoring abuse. Our final case today is a story about fighting back. It's about an employee in Australia who faced discrimination, lost her job, and then decided to use the legal system to take on a huge company. And she actually won. So, the key legal idea at the center of this one is unfair dismissal. And what that means, basically, is that your employer can't just fire you for a made up reason or in a way that's totally harsh or unreasonable. And that was the foundation of Adriana Permis's claim against the fast food giant Guzman Yugamez. And the difference in the evidence here is just stark. After Ms. Permis claimed her shifts got cut because of her race, the company fired her, saying it was because of poor performance. But they didn't provide a single piece of evidence to back that up. She, on the other hand, showed up with 11 positive witness statements from her coworkers calling her a hard worker who's always training new people. The company just had nothing. In this case, really highlights the deep personal toll this stuff takes. Ms. Permis told the commission that the whole experience left her feeling so depressed and worthless. She said it changed her from a happy young girl into someone who could barely leave her room. So in the end, the Fair Work Commission found there was absolutely no valid reason for her dismissal. They said the company's HR team basically left her in limbo. She was awarded over $10,000 in compensation, a clear, powerful victory for an employee who knew her rights and wasn't afraid to stand up for them. Okay, so we've just gone through 4 very different, very intense cases. Let's pull all of this together now and really break down the key lessons that apply to pretty much every employee in every single workplace out there. So let's recap the big lessons here. Number 1, that Helga case proved that so-called subtle racism is still misconduct, full stop. Number 2, the United Airlines scandal shows that when companies do nothing, it can be incredibly expensive. Number 3, a fair process is everything. You can't just fire someone without real solid evidence. And finally, number 4, know your rights. All these stories prove that employees have real power and real avenues to get justice. And that really brings us to our final question for today. We've seen the consequences: jobs lost, huge fines, lives damaged. So the question for all of us is this: how can we move from just being passive bystanders to being active participants in building workplaces that are genuinely safe and respectful for everyone? That's what we should all be thinking about. Thanks for tuning in.